Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Down to Earth Astronomy. We are once again playing Fractured Space, and today we're taking a look at the second of the three starter ships, the Sentinel. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer: the game is still in alpha, everything is subject to change, so the version of the ship that we are seeing right now might change in the future. So bear that in mind and always check the stats of the ship before you go into actual combat. So, the Sentinel, in its current state, is a very mobile ship that relies heavily on its mobility and its speed to prevent it from taking damage and to control the pace of the battle. If we go ahead and have a look at the loadout, the main weapon is a smart gun, and the reason why it's called a smart gun is because it fires off, I think they describe it as medium or small sized drones that would automatically track the target, so they're actually homing. We will see that a lot later, and a bit about how you can actually exploit that a bit. Then it has some real rockets, just base rockets that you fire off in a straight line, and they do some damage. So it's just a nice additional boost to damage. Then probably the signature ability for the Sentinel is its thrust pulse, or its thrust surge, which is essentially a speed boost that gives you a very significant increase to your speed for a very short period of time. I think they actually all last 5 seconds each. They come in a version that boosts and slows for 20%, so it boosts your and ally ships for 20% in a radius of 5 kilometers and slows enemies for 20%. Then it comes in a version that has plus 30% to allies and minus 10% to enemies, and the opposites where you have 30% slow and 10% increase to allies. And the final weapon here is, of course, fairly standard rockets that have a small decrease to the enemy's speed as well. Then we have a propulsion field, again an AoE buoy that you cast out that gives the allied ships within the target area an increase to its agility. So that's it. Let's go ahead and launch the ship and see how it handles at the actual shooting range. Here we are. We are now at the shooting range, and as we can see when I begin to maneuver around, it is a fairly mobile ship, decent speed and decent maneuverability, and that is really what you should use. So what I talked about with the smart guns, as you can see here when I fire, they do not that great amount of damage, but it's decent. But if I were to fire a bit off the target like this, you can see that it will try to track. I was a bit close, so if we do like this, they should be able to hit. There you go. Some of them still missed. And that's really an important point when you are fighting with the Sentinel. That you need to stay, I would say, at a medium range. It's not really good for long range combat. It can do it, but it's not as efficient as you want it to be. You really want to, I feel like staying between 10 or 5 kilometers from your target is really the optimal range for these guns. Because as you can see, when I get close, if I'm not aiming these perfectly, there's a chance they will miss because they simply do not have the turning radius to get back on target. The secondary weapon, just a series of missiles that do a decent amount of damage, and we have, of course, the normal homing missiles that we're used to from most of the ships. But the really interesting part about the Sentinel is, of course, its speed. So I just need a clear line here. If I activate the speed boost, we can see the speed increases quite significantly. This lasts for 5 seconds. And this can be used in several ways. You can either use it to quickly get on top of your opponents if you need to, or get some distance, whatever you feel like you need. Now, another thing that I talked about in the hangar is you can kind of exploit this homing ability of the main weapons. Because, as you can see, if I hide behind this column here, so even though I'm now currently out of line of sight, I'm still able to hit the target until I lose lock, of course. Simply because the shots are homing, and you can use that to your advantage to actually be able to shoot enemies without them being able to shoot back at you. Of course, that requires that someone else is actually spotting the target for you. But I think that's enough theory for now. Let's go ahead and see how this ship performs in some actual combat.
Upgrade complete.
Okay, so here we are. Let's go ahead and see how this ship performs in some actual combat. We are in the middle of a fight here, and I'm going to jump to beta to try and support the two ships. Now, as I said, this ship doesn't really like getting shot at, so what I'm doing here initially is I'm trying to hide, use the rocks for cover, until the enemy ships are focused on something else that's hopefully a bit more tanky than I am, and then we can pop out from behind the rocks and attack them. Now, when I cross the gap between the two rocks here, I definitely do get spotted. I would expect that I get spotted from the enemy ships over there, but that's not who I have my sights on. I sneak up behind this enemy ship, and I usually begin to fire at him. Now, I do make a bit of a misplay here, because I think I close a bit too close to him, which makes it a bit harder to hit with the Sentinel's gun. And as I get close, he definitely noticed me. He's getting annoyed that I'm shooting him up. I begin to take quite a bit of damage, and I don't like that. So I use the speed to get away, and then I jump out to reduce the incoming damage. Now, the important part to note here is I use the jump home command instead of the normal jump command, because those two are two different cooldowns, which would allow me to now jump straight back in. But just as I actually land on our friendly base, one of the forward stations, our forward station at the other corridor gets captured. So now my role would definitely be to try and defend the base. Now, notice that our cap is currently at 14%, so they cap 14% of our base. And we just encountered the first enemy ship, and that's 2 of them. I'm currently the only one here. Now we are 2. There's another one just jumped in, so I get a lot of heat at the beginning. I begin to take a lot of damage, so I turn the ship around, and I use the speed, as you can see here. I use my speed boost, get some distance, try and get away from them, because we don't want to get shot at. Now, I misjudged the size of the station here, and I tried to go down and use it for cover, to get down below the station so he can't shoot me. But again, I misjudged the size, and I bounced off the station, so unfortunately that didn't work. Now, I'm about ready to go back in. Their station have prepared me, and that's when I noticed that they have a support ship. I immediately begin to focus him down, because we need to get that support ship out of the fight as soon as possible, so we cannot repair the enemy ships. And again, I go a little bit too close to him, a bit of a misplay from my side, and you can see the guns have a bit of a hard time actually hitting him. But as soon as I get some distance, we can begin to do some decent damage. But people have noticed me again. I begin to take a lot of damage, and I use my speed to get some distance to the enemy ships to reduce the incoming damage, and this time we're clear of the station, so I should be able to go down and get in cover below the station. And luckily, as you can see right in front of me, that's actually a friendly ship repairing me, trying to keep me alive, and he does a very good job, and without him I definitely I would have died. from the incoming fire. Now I go down below the station, use it for cover, get repaired by the station, as you can see my life goes back up, and then we're ready to go back in and fight again. And that is it. We kill the last ship and the home base is secure. And they only managed to cap 4% from that attack. So this clip shows how you can use the Sentinel's speed and maneuverability to control the pace of the engagement and control when you want to fight and who you want to fight. Now, in this next clip here, I'm gonna to use the same tactic as I did in the previous one. We have one friendly ship in the corridor with me. I'm keeping some distance to him, trying to stay hidden amongst these rocks. And then once some enemy ships start to engage him, we can pop out from behind the rocks and spring the trap. Notice up ahead there's a Phantom Ghost spotted. Now, the Phantom Ghost is a high tier ship that relies on stealth and its blink ability to quickly engage people, do a large amount of alpha damage, and then get away, and then come back in. Much like the stealth bombers in EVE Online, if you ever played that game. He also has the ability to make an illusion of himself, and I believe that is what we saw over there, because the ship didn't move, didn't shoot on anybody, even though he had clear line of sight to one of our friendly ships. Now there he is. We just saw he popped out, and the battle has begun. So I pop out from behind the rocks, and I immediately engage the Phantom. The Phantom Ghost is not the most armored ship, that it relies on its speed and its ability to stay hidden to protect it. So he does what he really should, he tries to get away. But luckily for us, the Sentinel can easily keep up with him. I don't know if he panics here, but for some reason he's not shooting back. I think he's just too focused on trying to get away and get out of harm's way. He tries to cloak, but we are close enough that we can easily decloak him and kill him. So now that threat is dealt with, we jump back to our home base, because we noticed that we are being attacked on the opposite flank. Once again, noticed I used the jump home command, which leaves my normal jump off cooldown, so I immediately can jump. This is a very good tactic if you need to switch sides often or quickly, so you don't have the 30-second cooldown on the normal jump command. So just as I jump in, one of the enemy ships get killed, and all that's left now is an enemy gladiator. Now the gladiator is a very huge, well-armored ship with a lot of guns. You can see here he begins to shoot me up with all his guns. But think about the gladiators, it's really a broadside kind of ship. All the guns are located at the sides, and if it needs to use its full capabilities, it needs to have its sight to the enemy that it's fighting. That's why I used my speed boost again to get below him, where his guns are not that effective. You can see he can only shoot with 2 of his guns at me at the moment, instead of 8. And that reduces the incoming damage significantly, and that means that the incoming damage is tolerable. Get a bit far away from him here, he's allowed to get a few volleys off, but it's too little, too late, and he is dead. Once again, you can see you can use the mobility of the Sentinel to exploit your enemy's weaknesses if you know how they work, in which directions they can shoot. But quite a few of the ships have a limited firing arc. You can use that to your advantage if you know the enemy ships. A bit later, in the same battle here, again we notice the Phantom Ghost. He pops out and he tries to kill one of our friendly Sentinels. He uses blink ability to get close to him. And I use the sniper mode to get an accurate shot at his underside to strip his armor, which means we could do a lot of damage to him. And we quickly take him down with help from our friendly ships. Now, I panic a little bit here. I feel like I begin to take a lot of damage, even though the gladiator was jumping out. So I decide to boost out and use my jump home command again. And again, because I used the jump home, I'll be allowed to, as soon as I land, to instantly jump back into to the fight. So we essentially just swap from being in front of the enemies to being at the back, so we can fight with our friendly ships. But unfortunately, all that's left in here is an enemy venture, and we are currently 2 Sentinels. And even though, as you saw if you saw my review on the venture, it is a fairly well armored ship. It can really hold its own. For some reason, he doesn't launch his bubble. Maybe he already used it, so he doesn't launch his defense buoy, which would reduce his damage taken by 1/3, which is very good. He doesn't use it, so we can easily kill him and take care of him. So in this next clip here, we're again starting by hiding, trying not to get spotted before we're ready to engage. I haven't spotted anything in this sector at the moment, so I'm just moving from rock to rock, and there we have it. We have the Gladiator and the Phantom Ghost once again. I try to get around the flank of them, and I wait for the battle to begin. We currently have one other friendly ship in the sector, and once they're focused on him, I'm ready to jump in. We noticed over to the left that there's an enemy brawler got in. Notice here that as I moved behind the rock, I shifted my aim such that my shots went around the rock, so even though we didn't have a clear line of sight to the Gladiator, we were still able to land shot because of the homing effect of the Gladiator, of the Sentinel's main weapons. And again, we exploit the Sentinels, the Gladiators. I keep messing it up at the moment. We exploit his weakness that he cannot shoot directly above or below him, to try and shield ourselves from incoming damage. He jumps out, and I try to get as much damage in on him as possible before he jumps, but unfortunately he managed to get away. And just as he jumps out, our friendly ship unfortunately goes down, so now it's just me and a badly damaged brawler. I'm at full health, so this shouldn't really be too much of an issue. Now, the brawler is, as the name suggests, really a brawling ship. It really want to get up close and personal. So I'm trying to keep a little bit of a distance. He tries to get into the force field to get repairs, but he can't make it. Now, I can't remember if this is the same Gladiator, but there's at least another Gladiator jumping in, and we immediately begin to take a lot of damage from his broadside. He launches his mines. Again, I move above him to try and reduce the incoming damage. But then more enemy ships jump in, and this is again more than I can handle. So I use my speed to get some distance, and I really should try to maneuver a bit more here than I do. I noticed at the end, and I just get out with a sliver of health, and I get back to the main station. And again, we were able to use the Sentinel's speed to get out of trouble and to control the pace of the battle. And that's pretty much it. If you think the Sentinel's a ship for you, I think you should definitely go in and try it. If you play it differently, let me know in the comments down below, because this is just the tactic I use when I play the Sentinel. You might find another tactics to be better. But anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a like down below. Consider subscribing to the channel. This has been Down to Earth Astronomy, and until next time, have a good one.